Hey everyone, it's the Nitty Professor. Spring is springing. The proof is that in spite of the fact that it's only 30 degrees here, the robins and the grackles are out in great quantities. So I even have seen garter snakes lately, so I know that spring is more or less here. Maybe less, but also more. Now, in line with that, we associate spring with bright colors. In fact, the cover to book 3 of my novel series exhibits that pretty well. So I thought I would address the topic of spring knitting motivation through the selection of vibrant colors. It's certainly something that I am experiencing fairly potently, as I will show you shortly. So this is an example of a sweater that I knit in bright colors, and these are the colors that the designer chose, and they're nice. You know, it's a nice rich variety there. We've got the yellow and the burgundy, and I'm trying to remember the yarns that were selected for the original of this pattern. It's by Jessie Ostermiller, the Tucson pullover. I've done a couple videos of this over the years. Ancient Arts Fibercrafts yarn. So it's a hand-dyed yarn that she chose. Now, as you can see, the difference between my version and the original is fairly significant. So I decided that I really needed, in order to motivate my way through this, which is done with fingering weight yarn. I used Roma Finwell yarn. I really needed to use colors that were going to turn me on, maybe mod, 70s or maybe even 60s taste colors. So when I was trying to figure out how I was going to coordinate these colors, I had to sort of think long and hard. So I did this kind of table. So you see there the original colors indicated, and I like a pattern that indicates the actual colors on the color work repeats. It's very helpful. But then I wrote next to each one what I wanted to use, and that was I even had to do this. Like I did this on. Let me see if I can. I don't want to do some against the copyright stuff, but I put like a little key there, as you might be able to see on the edge. So where there was a white, that was my orange. So I had to, mentally, I see white, okay, that's the orange. And there's kind of a light teal, that's where I used white. And then there's a dark teal, for that I used lavender. There was an orange color, for that I used charcoal. A dark burnt orange color, for that I used chartreuse. And then for the yellow, I actually used yellow. So that made things a little bit easier. But you can kind of see it's a rich color selection. I love this pattern. A part of me wants to make it again with a whole new series of colors. And, one of the things I really like about this pattern is the fact that it's so geometric. This whole issue of Interweave, which I'm so sorry that they don't make that magazine anymore. This is from summer 2018. It was a Southwest Knits themed issue. And it's a real challenge to find patterns that are sort of oriented towards North America, per se. Kind of unusual. And this, you can probably find it on Ravelry, right? This issue really did a good job with that. Here you can see the sweater with the more neutral lower segments on the body and the sleeves, the gray color, allowing the colorful yoke and below to really shine. So here's a picture of it from the back. And I was really, when I saw this, I just had to knit that sweater. But as you can tell, I had to knit it in a very different manner. I had to use a very different approach. So yeah, And I did integrate the white, and I think white is sometimes a kind of an anchor color to bring out that vibrancy and some of the contrast. I think it's smart to throw a little white into a more complex color palette. It just sets things off. Now, do I always do that? No. And the one I'm about to show you, I'm not doing it either. But I think in this particular sweater, it works really well with the white. You know, I could have probably used, I don't know. I don't know what I would have done if it hadn't been for the white. In fact, I even have a little gray in there, see? As far as how I choose these colors, it's, you know, I think this works. You might disagree, but I really think that these colors work very well in this sweater. As far as how I chose the bright colors so that they would sort of harmonize, I just use my eye. My mom was an artist. My sister is an artist. And I do kind of trust my eye. Now, it's interesting because in my novels, I have a fiber artist who's a well-trained professor. And then I have a blind woman who wants to use color based on her memory of having understood color when she was little. And her refusal to deny herself access to, you know, providing colorful experiences for others who might come and see her, whatever she knit or her art. And for that, I use color theory. And I've looked into, studied a little color theory and the different takes on it. There are a lot of different versions of color theory that are based on different principles, everything from light to emotion. So it's pretty interesting. So I kind of fly by the seat of my pants. And personally, I think it works. Maybe it's just a question of taste, right? So as you can tell, I'm perfectly capable of knitting more wintry, subdued types of sweaters. In fact, I like to incorporate maximum variety. I don't always succeed. I do have a lot of pink in my sweaters, as you can tell. So I like pink, but I also like green. In fact, I have more than one green themed sweater. Now, this is a Noro yarn, so it's obviously also in its own way, subdued way, very colorful. I love color. The most simple sweater I've made is a Henley, which is from Noro multicolored yarn. So knitting in a solid color is something of which I have done very little. That being said, so as we can tell, I could do subdued and I could do bold and brilliant. And in this spring season where I really want to get the knitting done, but I have to, you know, prioritize things like mowing the lawn, gardening, keeping things cleaned up to the extent that it's possible with, what do we have, 11 pets? It's a lot of times just getting them fed ends up being the priority over sterility. But there's something about this season that just makes my mind, it drives me towards bright colors. So the next example, I am super motivated to work on this sweater. So I'm going to show you what I have so far. And you can see bright colors. I'm really having a good time with this. So I've introduced, so we start off with that purpley blue, and then I went to the lime green. I think it's a really nice combo, mixed with orange and pink. So some similar colors to this other sweater, right? The Jessie Ostermiller Tucson sweater. But with, now instead of having, you know, orange be the main color, I have this sort of royal purple as the main color. And I want to see these colors unfold as I move along and to see them stretch their way across the sweater. It's extraordinarily motivating. It's really cool. So what is it exactly that I'm knitting here? Some of you have seen a couple of recent videos, so you know I am knitting a Linka Neumann pattern, and her colors are bold also in their own way, but in a very different way from what I'm using. So this is the Nordkalotten sweater. She's got a couple different versions based on yarn weight. So here's one with a green, yellow, burnt orange type of vibe going on. Very nice. It's gorgeous. Then there's another version with orange, blue, and white. And there is, well, depending on the version, there's another color that's kind of going in there. Here is one with white, blue, and sort of a maroon. So these are all the same sweater. And I think it's really cool how she, sort of suggests, based on having different realizations of the pattern, that you should play with her color choices. Here's a cardigan version, and this is the one I'm sort of basing my version on this pattern. This is knit with a thinner yarn, so I'm using a DK. And here we have 4 colors. She's got here the 3-ply strikegarn from Rauma, and I think it might be a little thinner than what I'm using because she recommends a US4 needle. I'm using a 6 with a DK yarn, partly based on the yarn that I chose, which is a brown sheep DK. And I did some measurements and I figured out that I need to start it with 252 stitches. So we are dealing with 4 colors here. That being said, because I have this color madness going on right now, I'm using arguably 6 colors. 5, 6, depending on how you judge it. Now, she's got these little diamond motifs that use 3 colors. And as I started knitting this, I started knitting it and I was just going to use the 4 colors, but I was like, I might run out of yarn. What am I going to do, right? So I went through my stash. I'm to the point now where I prefer not to buy yarn to complete a project when I can find something that will work in my stash. So in addition to these beautiful brown sheep colors, we have the energized purple. I think I showed these in a German video. Sometimes I forget if I use German or English. It's really dumb. This is called Molten Magenta. Beautiful, beautiful colors. This is the color that the deer are going to have. I just can't wait to do deer in pink. My spring proclivities demand that of me. Here is the orange that is going into this, which you saw. And I have to look up the label. We've energized purple. I've now balled up Dragonfire. That one's called Dragonfire. Of course it's called Dragonfire. Well, then we have a bold yellow, which, can I find that? Cadmium yellow. So I bought these brightly colored yarns at a yarn festival at some point. But like I said, I was like, what if I run out? Like, what if I get half, 2/3 of the way up the pink deer and then I run out? So I found in my stash some merino that I had gotten at Stephen B. I'm going to try to find the labels along with the yarn. I found one label. And if I can find the other, I found it. So here we go. So I am adding a lime green to my palette. And that is from Kleur en Draag. I am not a Dutch speaker, so I took one semester. That didn't really get me very far. That color is called ELO. E-L-O. And then I found a skein of similar merino. This gorgeous hunk of yarn. Same maker. Hand-dyed merino yarn. That one is called Oopsie Daisy. So, as I go along, I will gladly share with you guys what I'm doing with the colors in order to realize the original pattern with, Neumann's beautiful colors. But what it's really fun to recognize is how motivating it is proving to knit with these incredibly vibrant, beautiful colors that remind me of spring, that get me in the mood for spring, that get me in the mood to knit up this sweater and to just see how it's going to turn out. It's like, reading a thriller. I'm knitting a thriller. Especially, I think the colors are going to play off of each other really well. But, the final effect will be, I'm sure, somehow surprising, just as it was with this baby. Somewhat surprising, but I think also pleasing. So it'll be interesting, maybe in a couple months, to be able to do this with my new sweater, to hold up, the original with my version of it. Now, arguably, I really should post these in Ravelry. Do I have time? Not really. Right now, I'm developing not one, but 2 summer courses on teaching Braille, but they will be done soon. So, I should post these on Ravelry with information about the yarns. I do try to keep the information somehow. I try to keep the labels available. Organization is something that I use as necessary. So if it's really necessary for teaching a class, that's one thing. If it's sort of kind of necessary for a hobby, it may or may not manifest itself to the desired degree. But we'll see. In any case, I'm going to keep knitting. I hope you guys are finding something fun, something vibrant, something colorful to knit on for spring that just really has you motivated. I just want to fly through this. I just want to knit. I'm just so excited about the colors. Kind of like when you garden, you want to see those flowers pop up and see the colors. The crocus are coming quickly. Now it's the daffodils. Now it's the tulips. Now it's the iris. Now it's the bleeding heart. Just can't wait. And that's the way I feel about this sweater. So I hope you are equally motivated with a project that you are working on, that you're having fun, that spring is bringing you joy and an opportunity to just, feel like the kind of human being that we should be, which is, we have a lust for life and we just can't wait for the next opportunity to see what life brings. And we can exercise our agency to ensure that it's largely good. So you guys take care. Have fun with your knitting. Let me know what you're working on. And we'll talk soon. Ciao.